The envelope was thick, the letters embossed in gold, pure Worthington extravagance. But the moment I opened it, I knew something was wrong. Only my name, not mine and Michael's, just mine. Mr. and Mrs. Charles Worthington invite you to their daughter Victoria's wedding. My hands were shaking when I called my sister Victoria. Hey, I think someone made a mistake on the invitation. It only has my name on it. She laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. No mistake, Sarah. Mom and Dad decided it wouldn't be right to invite Michael. You get it, right? I definitely got it. My husband wasn't fancy enough for their perfect wedding. He works as an electrician and doesn't wear expensive suits or drive a Porsche. So he wasn't good enough for the Worthington family garden party. As I held that invitation, memories flooded back. When I was 12, Victoria got a white mare with a nameplate and a ribboned mane. I got a used paperback from the airport gift shop. When Victoria made her debut at the country club at 18, wearing a $5,000 gown, I wasn't even invited to watch. One debutante per family is enough, Mother had said, not looking up from her newspaper. The worst was my college graduation. I'd worked 3 jobs to pay for state school, while Victoria sailed through private university on Daddy's checkbook. When I walked across that stage, summa cum laude, I scanned the crowd for my family. They were there, but they were checking their phones. Victoria was texting. Dad was reading emails. Only Mom was sort of watching, but she looked bored. "You'll sit at the singles table," Victoria said in her fake sweet voice. "Right next to the kids' table. It'll be great." I wanted to hang up on her. I wanted to tell her exactly what I thought about her stupid wedding, but instead I said, "Okay, I'll be there." 'Cause that's what I always do. I let my family treat me and my husband like garbage, and I just take it. Quick favor before we move on. Over 90% of people watching right now haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying this story, tap that like button and hit subscribe. It's completely free, and it helps this channel reach more amazing listeners like you. Already subscribed? You're the best. Thank you so much. Now, let's get back to it. Michael and I met 5 years ago at a coffee shop, near the university where I was getting my master's degree in education. I was struggling with my laptop. The screen kept flickering on and off. This guy at the next table looked over and said, "That's a loose connection in your display cable. I can fix it in 2 minutes if you want." Most people would have said, "Try turning it off and on again," but Michael diagnosed the exact problem, just by watching the flicker pattern. He pulled out a tiny screwdriver from his keychain and had my laptop working perfectly in 90 seconds. "How did you know that?" I asked. He shrugged, closing his small toolkit. "I see patterns. Electrical problems are just puzzles." Then he smiled, and it was the most genuine smile I'd ever seen. "I'm Michael, by the way. I'd love to buy you a coffee and hear about what you're studying." That's when I knew he was different. He didn't ask what my last name was, or where I lived, or what my parents did. He wanted to know about me, my thoughts, my dreams, my mind. Michael grew up different than me. His dad was an electrician who died when Michael was 16, leaving his mom with 3 kids and a mountain of medical bills. Instead of college, Michael went to trade school at night, while working as an electrician during the day. He put himself through advanced electrical training, then specialized courses in smart home technology, then business classes at the community college. "I promised my dad I'd do something that mattered," he told me on our 3rd date. He said anyone can push papers or make phone calls, but fixing things, creating things, making life better for people, that's real work. I fell in love with his hands first. Strong, capable hands that could diagnose a problem with a touch and fix anything electrical. But I fell in love with his mind even more. He saw solutions where others saw problems. He built systems that were beautiful and functional. He was an artist who worked in copper and light. The week before the wedding was torture. It started at Mom's fancy tea party with all her rich friends. "Sarah's coming alone, obviously," Mom told her friends while stirring her tea with a silver spoon. "Her husband works for some electrical company." "He works with his hands," she said electrical company like it was something gross. "Mrs. Pemberton, who was going to be Victoria's new mother-in-law, raised her eyebrow. How interesting. My son's father owns 3 big companies. We're so happy Victoria found someone good enough. The words hit me like a slap. Someone good enough. My mind flashed back to Christmas 2 years ago, when Michael had quietly fixed their temperamental oven without being asked, ensuring dinner wouldn't be ruined. He'd saved their perfect holiday, and they'd treated him like invisible help. I almost told them that Michael made more than any of their husbands, that billionaires waited months to work with him, but I swallowed it down like bitter tea. Mrs. Hartwell, another society friend, chimed in with her nasally voice. Well, at least he has steady work, though I imagine the pay is quite modest. It must be difficult, making ends meet on a tradesman's salary. I wanted to scream that Michael made more in a month than her husband made in 6, but the words stuck in my throat. This was the pattern: defend Michael and be exiled from the family, or stay quiet and let them trash the man I loved. The important thing, added Mrs. Pemberton with false sympathy, is that Sarah seems happy with her simple life. Not everyone needs luxury. Dad was worse. During our family dinner on Friday night, he sat at the head of our big dining table and talked loud enough for everyone to hear. Sarah, honey, we love you, but you have to see why bringing your husband wouldn't work. These are important people. Senators, judges, business owners. They don't want to talk to someone who crawls around under houses. Victoria giggled into her wine glass, the sound sharp and cutting. She'd perfected that laugh in boarding school, designed to make other people feel small. Remember when he came to Christmas dinner wearing work boots? I thought Mrs. Hartwell was going to pass out. And the way he actually tried to help in the kitchen? Like we don't have staff for that. She took another sip of wine, warming to her theme. Sarah, honestly, don't you ever wonder what your life could have been like if you'd made different choices? My cousin Bradley, who was 3 years younger and had never held a real job in his life, decided to join in. I mean, it's admirable that Sarah's so grounded. Dating outside your social class takes real commitment. He said it like I was doing charity work. Dad kept going. The man doesn't even own a nice suit. And that truck of his is covered in tools and wires. What would people think? Uncle Richard, Dad's brother, nodded sagely. There's something to be said for marrying within your circle. Shared values, shared backgrounds. It just makes things easier. I sat there while my dinner got cold, feeling smaller and smaller with each comment. My throat felt tight, like someone was slowly strangling me. These people had known me my entire life, but they were talking about me like I was a stranger, who'd made a series of tragic mistakes. You'll be broke your whole life, Mom added, a period, shaking her head sadly. We just want you to understand what you picked. Some of us care about looking successful. Each comment felt like getting slapped in the face, but worse than the insults was the memory they triggered. My 16th birthday, when Victoria got a brand new BMW, and I got a lecture about managing expectations and understanding our budget constraints. Even then, I knew the budget constraints only applied to me. On the morning of my sister's wedding, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, fixing my navy blue dress over and over. It was the nicest dress I owned. I bought it on sale, but I knew it would look cheap next to all the designer dresses at the wedding. The internal war was raging in my head again. Maybe they're right. Maybe Michael deserves better than this family. Maybe I should have worked harder to fit in, to become someone they could be proud of. But then I remembered a few weeks ago, when Michael had stayed up until 3 a.m., helping our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Williamson, rewire her kitchen outlets for free, just because she'd mentioned she was scared of electrical fires. That's who my husband really was, someone who used his skills to help people, not to impress them. Michael came out of the bathroom with wet hair from his shower. He took the day off work to help me get ready, even though he wasn't invited. His company was installing a major system for a tech CEO this weekend, a project worth $60,000, but he'd rearranged his entire schedule for me. "You look beautiful," he said and kissed my cheek. His hands were clean now. The burns from electrical work had mostly healed. "Your family doesn't know what they're missing." I couldn't look at him. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should have. "Stop," he said firmly but nicely. "Don't let them mess with your head. You're better than all of them." But while I drove alone to my family's big house, their mean words kept playing in my head. "Broke your whole life. Works with his hands. Not good enough." The Worthington house sat on 15 acres of perfect grass and gardens. They decorated everything for the wedding, with white silk hanging from trees, and thousands of tiny lights everywhere. Ice sculptures sparkled on every table, and waiters in white uniforms moved around like ghosts. I found my seat at table 12, stuck behind a big column next to the kids' table. 8-year-old Emma kept kicking her chair legs, making this annoying rhythm that matched my heartbeat. From my hidden corner, I could overhear conversations that made my stomach churn. "Well, the Worthington family certainly knows how to put on an event," said a woman in a pale pink Chanel suit. "Though I heard there was some concern about the electrical setup." Her companion, dripping in diamonds, leaned in conspiratorially. "Oh yes, apparently Sarah's husband looked at it months ago, but Charles hired Pemberton and Associates instead. Much more appropriate for a family of this caliber." "Absolutely. You have to be so careful about who you associate with professionally. It reflects on the entire family." There it was. They weren't just rejecting Michael's invitation. They'd rejected his professional expertise too, choosing a company based on social connections rather than skill. Meanwhile, at the head table, I watched Victoria holding court in her $10,000 wedding dress. She was surrounded by her sorority sisters, all of them perfectly coiffed and dripping with inherited jewelry. "Sarah looks lovely," one of them said with the kind of false sweetness that could rot teeth. "She does," Victoria replied. "I just wish she could be truly happy. It's so hard when you settle, you know." The bridesmaids nodded sympathetically, as if my marriage was some kind of tragic compromise, rather than the best thing that had ever happened to me. Dad stood by the bar, waving his hands around while he told his friends about his disappointing younger daughter. I could hear pieces of what he was saying. Poor choices, electric work, simple lifestyle. "At least she seems content," said Judge Morrison, a family friend. "Not everyone can handle the pressures of our social circle." "True," Dad replied, swirling his scotch. "Some people are just built for simpler lives." Each word hurt like a punch. I went to the bathroom and stared at myself in the fancy mirror, wondering why I even came. My reflection looked back at me, the lesser daughter, the disappointment, the one who'd chosen love over status. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Hope you're having fun. Love you." The message made me want to cry. Here was this amazing man who loved me no matter what, who worked harder than anyone I knew, who treated me like a princess in our little 3-bedroom house, and I was embarrassed of him. What kind of person does that make me? When the sun started setting, Dad tapped his fancy champagne glass with a silver knife to get everyone's attention. All 200 guests got quiet as he walked up to the gazebo with a microphone. The moment felt surreal. Here was my father, about to give a speech about family values and tradition, while the man who'd actually tried to help them sat at home, uninvited. "Friends, family, important guests," he started, his voice loud across the whole garden. "We're here tonight to celebrate not just Victoria and Jonathan's wedding, but two families coming together who understand tradition, excellence, and—" Then all the lights went out. Every single light in the garden died at the same time. The tiny fairy lights, the chandeliers, the spotlights on the ice sculptures, everything. The microphone made a static noise and went dead. Even the band's music stopped in the middle of a song. The silence was deafening. 200 of the city's most powerful people sat in complete darkness, utterly helpless. Dad stood frozen on the gazebo steps, moving his mouth but no sound coming out. His carefully planned speech about excellence and tradition had been cut short by the very electrical problem Michael had warned them about. What happened? Victoria shrieked. The ice sculptures? Someone wailed. Doesn't anyone here know how to fix this? Said one of the groomsmen, scanning the crowd helplessly. Around me, the reaction was immediate and panicked. Mrs. Pemberton's voice cut through the darkness. Charles, surely you have backup generators. I watched the chaos unfold with a mixture of horror and vindication. This was exactly what Michael had said would happen. He'd sketched out the electrical load calculations on a napkin 6 months ago, showing them precisely why their outdated system couldn't handle the demand. Mom's voice came from somewhere near the main table. Charles, fix this. The wedding photographer's flash started going off randomly as he tried to capture something, anything, period, in the darkness. The wedding coordinator was running around with a flashlight, her perfect composure completely shattered. Dad fumbled with the dead microphone, barely visible in the moonlight. There must be a blown fuse or something. Does anyone here know about electricity? The irony was so thick I could taste it. Here they were at their perfect party with all their perfect people, and not one of them knew how to flip a light switch back on. 200 guests representing billions of dollars in net worth, and they were as helpless as children in the dark. Victoria appeared next to my table, her face twisted up with anger. Sarah, call your husband right now. He looked at the electrical stuff for this party. This is all his fault. I almost did laugh then. 6 months ago, Michael offered to fix their outdoor electrical system for free. He warned them the old wiring couldn't handle all the lights they wanted. Dad waved him away and hired Pemberton and Associates Electric instead, because they understood quality homes. My hands were shaking as I called Michael. Around us, all the rich guests were fumbling with their phone flashlights, their perfect party falling apart. The mighty Worthington social circle, reduced to stumbling around in the dark like everyone else. I'm coming, Michael said when I told him what happened. Tell them to stay away from the electrical boxes. 20 minutes later, headlights came up the driveway. Not just one truck, but 3 trucks. Michael's company name was painted on the sides in nice letters. Michael's, Lumina Smart Home Systems, Custom Lighting Solutions. But there was a 4th car that changed everything. A shiny black Aston Martin. That belonged to Harrison Rothschild, the billionaire tech guy who'd been sitting at the main table. Rothschild walked over to Michael's crew as they took out their equipment. His eyes got big when he saw the company logo. Lumina? You guys designed my Malibu house lighting system last month? The crowd of guests started gathering around, drawn by curiosity and the desperate hope that someone could fix their ruined evening. Michael looked up from his testing equipment, calm and professional. Mr. Rothschild, yes, the $20 million Cliff House project. How are the sunset light shows working? Perfect, Rothschild said with a huge smile. Best smart home setup I've ever seen. My guests talk about it all the time. A murmur rippled through the crowd of eavesdropping guests. Suddenly, everyone was listening. Mom appeared next to Michael, her fake smile slipping for the first time ever. Michael, sweetie, we had no idea you run that company? You thought I just worked there? Michael asked politely. Like, with tools and things? The change in her tone was dramatic. Gone was the condescending dismissal. Now there was uncertainty, maybe even fear. Michael smiled politely but coldly. Mrs. Worthington, let me check your electrical problem. I watched in amazement as my husband transformed before my eyes. This wasn't the quiet man who got dismissed at family dinners. This was a business owner, a professional who commanded respect from billionaires. He spent 20 minutes looking at the outdoor electrical boxes with his team, using fancy equipment I'd never seen before. All the guests watched as this quote-unquote simple electrician told his crew what to do like a real boss. His team moved with the coordination of a symphony. One technician ran diagnostics on the main panel, while another traced the outdoor circuits. A third team member set up portable lighting so they could work safely. Voltage irregular in sectors 3 and 7, called out one of his crew. Confirmed, Michael replied, studying readings on a tablet. Check for rodent damage in the underground conduits. The technical language was impressive, but what really struck me was how his team looked at him. These weren't just employees, like they respected him. They hung on his every word because they knew he was the expert. Finally, Michael walked over to Dad, who was still standing awkwardly by the gazebo. Mr. Worthington, I have bad news. Dad's face lit up with hope and desperation. Can you fix it? People are getting upset. I could see the guests straining to hear every word. Judge Morrison had moved closer. Mrs. Pemberton was practically breathing down Michael's neck. Your home's electrical system is a museum piece, Michael said loud enough for everyone to hear. The outdoor wiring has been chewed up by mice and rats. Maybe by bugs, too. The protective covering is completely destroyed. It can't support modern smart lighting. Frankly, it's a fire hazard. Victoria gasped. A fire hazard? The insulation is gone in multiple locations. You're lucky this was just a power failure and not a fire. Michael's voice was calm, but firm. The system can't handle modern smart lighting. Our equipment is made for high-end custom homes with new electrical standards. To make your house work with our systems, you'd have to tear down every wall and rewire everything from scratch. Complete silence. 200 rich guests listened, as my embarrassing husband basically told the Worthington family their house was a dump. Rothschild stepped forward, and what he said next changed everything. Lumina designed my whole smart home system for my new Manhattan penthouse, too. $35 million project. They're so busy I had to wait 8 months just to get an appointment. Mrs. Pemberton's mouth dropped open. 8 months. Michael's company is the most sought-after smart lighting business on the West Coast, Rothschild kept going. I recommended them to Steve Jobs' widow, to 3 different tech CEOs, and to that new Netflix founder's beach house. They only work with the absolute top tier of custom homes. A ripple of applause broke out. Tentative at first, then louder. Not for the bride, not for the groom, for the man in the work boots. The reaction from the crowd was immediate and electric. Whispers started spreading like wildfire. Did he say Steve Jobs' widow? 8-month waiting list? Top tier only? Judge Morrison looked stunned. You mean this is the Lumina that did the Sanderson estate? That lighting system is legendary. And the Patterson Mansion renovation, added Mrs. Hartwell, her voice now full of awe instead of condescension. I heard they had to book 2 years in advance. Victoria grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. Sarah, you never told us Michael was successful. The word hung in the air like an accusation. I looked at my sister, my beautiful, spoiled sister, who just had her perfect wedding ruined by the man she thought was too embarrassing to invite. Around us, I could see the wheels turning in people's minds. The society wives who'd dismissed Michael an hour ago were now staring at him like he was a celebrity. The business moguls who wouldn't have given him a second glance were suddenly interested in conversation. You never asked, I said simply. But inside, I was flying. This was the moment I dreamed of for 5 years, watching my family realize they'd completely misjudged the man I loved. The wedding was ruined. Not officially, the minister managed to finish the ceremony with candles, but the reception was over. Guests started leaving in groups, whispering about electrical systems and smart homes, and the shocking truth about the Worthington family's embarrassing son-in-law. Dad walked over as Michael put his equipment back in the trucks. The change in his demeanor was pathetic to watch. Gone was the commanding patriarch. Now he was just a desperate old man, whose perfect evening had been destroyed. Michael, maybe we can talk about updating our electrical system as is family. Michael smiled professionally but coldly. Thanks for asking, Mr. Worthington. Unfortunately, we're completely booked for the next 14 months. We only work on new houses now. Homes built from the ground up with modern systems. Surely you could make an exception? Our basic consultation fee for houses that need complete rewiring is $50,000, Michael continued. And that's just to see if we can even help. Mom made a choking sound. Dad's face went completely white. You should try Classic Electric on Elm Street, Michael said. Though rewiring a house this big, you're probably looking at $300,000 to $400,000, at least. Victoria was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks. The wedding photographer had given up trying to get usable shots. Half the guests had already left, and the other half were standing around in the dark, unsure what to do. The wedding coordinator approached Michael desperately. Sir, is there anything at all you could do, even temporary lighting? Michael considered this for a moment. I could set up some basic work lights to get people to their cars safely. But for liability reasons, I can't do anything with your permanent electrical system. The safety issues are too significant. As we drove away, I looked back at the dark house. Without all the lights and decorations, it looked old and sad, like a fancy old lady without makeup. The ride home was quiet at first. Then Michael reached over and took my hand. I'm sorry your sister's wedding got ruined, he said. I squeezed his hand. Are you really? He thought about it for a moment, then smiled. Not really. 1 year later, we started building our new custom home, a gorgeous modern house built into the hill, directly above the Worthington house. Every evening when the sun sets, our smart lighting system lights up our gardens, in an amazing display you can see for miles. The neighbors call it the most beautiful house in the valley. From our living room window, I can see the Worthington house below, where electricians are still trying to rewire everything. The project has cost them almost everything. They had to get a second mortgage and sell Mom's jewelry collection. Victoria calls sometimes, her voice small and desperate, asking if Michael might help with their project. I always tell her I'll ask, knowing he's too busy designing lighting systems for tech billionaires and movie stars to bother with smaller jobs. Michael's company now makes over $1 million a month. We're not the couple living paycheck to paycheck anymore. We're the couple that other wealthy families fight to hire. But the real win isn't the money, or the beautiful house, or even watching my family get what they deserved. It's the lesson I learned that night in the dark garden. Real success isn't about fancy bloodlines or trust funds or society connections. It's about the value you create, the problems you solve, and the respect you earn by being excellent at what you do. My husband doesn't work with his hands because he has to. He works with his hands because he's an artist, creating beauty that billionaires wait in line to experience. I'm not the embarrassing daughter who married down. I'm the smart woman who saw brilliance when everyone else only saw dirty fingernails. Sometimes the brightest light doesn't come from chandeliers or crystal sconces. It comes from the quiet hands who know how to wire truth into power, and the hearts that finally see it.